I think that AI is about making the work that we care about easier and making the work that we don't like to do disappear as much as possible.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Brainiac Blueprint, where we discuss the intersection of AI and how it impacts the business world around us with our esteemed guests. I am your host, Kyle Lambert, founder of Left Brain AI and Action Hero Marketing. Today is another episode in our healthcare series where we are going to be discussing an AI medical scribe. With that being said, welcome to the show, Lauren Funaro.
Hi, Kyle. I'm so happy to be here. I'm Lauren Funaro, Content Marketing Manager at Freed. We are an AI medical scribe and clinician assistant. Our whole goal is to reduce the documentation and administrative burden on individual clinicians and small and medium practices. It's been a wild ride and a very fun one so far, and I'm so excited to talk about it.
Amazing. I think everybody likes less administrative burden. So especially when you're dealing with lives and all kinds of stuff that you get thrown at with healthcare. So that's awesome. So let's jump right in. Lauren, as we were discussing, I like all of our guests to kind of set the stage with what they think about AI. So please finish the prompt. I think AI is.
I think that AI is about making the work that we care about easier and making the work that we don't like to do disappear as much as possible. At Freed, we believe that AI can help small and independent practices thrive instead of just survive right now. And for marketing teams like mine, that means that we can get smarter and faster insights, build storytelling at a grander scale, and create real relationships with the time that we have left.
That's incredible. I feel like we've all been begging for this tool that makes us do the stuff we love and not do the stuff we don't want to do, right? So
exactly. And I think clinicians have a very unique experience there where the job that they have to do is then added on to this administrative task that really is someone else's full-time gig.
I think about that all the time. There's so much stress with healthcare and there's just an emotional high and low that comes with it. Obviously, there's the amazing success stories that come. You cured somebody, you delivered a baby, whatever it may be. And then obviously there's the really sad portions where they're just delivering bad news or, of course, death and everything. So, having to then have to go write down notes and do a prescription afterward, like that has to be just truly awful, almost like reliving these. Great if it's a good thing, but awful if you're reliving the sad part of it all.
You're totally right. And if you think about the cognitive load, how much anyone has to take on in a given day, we've seen clinicians say that 19 hours in a week are devoted to documentation. And that is usually not within the workday. It's happening after they go home. It's taking away from time with their families, or it's in between these sessions so they don't have the chance to really context switch at all. And what we hear is they want to deliver that quality care. They love their patients, but they also love the people they are outside of their job. And it's our responsibility to enable them to do that while not having to spend all of their time staring at a screen and clicking a million different buttons.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Very cool. Well, let's jump in a little bit more. We'll obviously continue to talk about Freed and your role, but let's jump into your journey. Some of the work that you do with Freed. Obviously, you're the content marketing manager for them. So just give us a high level day-to-day, what it is that you're working on, what you're trying to accomplish.
Of course. So I'll do a bit of background on my experience so far. So in the last 5 years, I've worked primarily in SaaS, really in these fast scaling startups. My last company was a tool called Scribe, not to be confused with the AI Scribe I work with now.
Okay.
That was a vertical tool where we raised our Series B while I was there, and we increased our traffic from 8,000 to over 130,000 in 2 years, which I'm very proud of. And now at Freed, it is all about creating this community and building content that is going to connect and excel with clinicians. So we've just raised our Series A. We got 30 million from Sequoia, which was very exciting.
Congrats. Amazing.
Thank you. We just celebrated my 1 year as a Fredo, which is what they call us.
A Fredo, I like that. It's always good to have that term that everybody can identify with.
Right? We've really leaned in heavily from a non-marketing branding perspective. But anyway, we also increased our domain rating from 30 to 50, actually, as of this morning. And we've 4 times our year-over-year ARR growth with a community of 20,000 plus paying clinicians. And I actually have a really cool stat. We've saved 2.5 million clinician hours since we launched in 2023. So that's the proudest one that we have, is this tangible impact we've gotten to have on the clinician life.
Sorry, say that again. So that was 250 million hours saved?
2.5 million hours.
2.5. Okay, got it. That's still a huge number. Incredible. Awesome.
I'm so excited to see it, and I know it's only going to grow as the tool evolves.
Yeah, 100%. So, getting the Series A is huge. That's very exciting. I'm curious, I know you may not be able to share too much detail, but I'm curious if how or like what changes are coming, whether that's something directly with your role, maybe it's product advancements, what kind of exciting stuff can we expect?
I'm going to give you the vaguest and as specific answer as I can give. So our roadmap, especially in the next 6 months, is really exciting. And it's primarily around this evolution from what was an AI scribe to what is now a fully fledged clinician assistant. So we're looking into how we can specifically support that before and after, because right now we're focused solely on that experience within the visit and getting the note. How can we support before the patient even walks in the room? And then how can we support that connection with getting that content out where it needs to get? And then looking at the specificity of both the clinician themselves, what's their specialty? How can the note match that use case? And then how can we support the larger clinician experience throughout that use case?
Got it. Very, very cool. Very cool. I love that it's, evolving quickly, and I'm sure it's going to be an interesting next couple of years here for you guys.
I think it's going to be an interesting 5 months. The next years, I can't even.
I was going to say, like the next quarter is just going to so many changes and new things coming in. Yeah, that's going to be fun. Plenty of content for you to work on, I'm sure.
Absolutely. I have a lot of job security.
Nice. That's perfect. So let's jump into the content a little bit. When you and I were connecting, and obviously you provided a little bit of detail there. What does your strategy look like when you're coming up with content? I know you're trying to be helpful for the clinicians, and obviously there's always a lens of influencing the buyer and decision-making journey. So, what is your high-level strategy? What are you hoping to accomplish? What does that look like?
Well, we're a tightly connected, data-driven system, and really we're a genuine PLG motion. So we're speaking to both the individual clinician and then those small to medium-sized practices with everything we develop. We're looking at brand building and topical authority as our primary top of funnel. Then we're looking at how we can create that demand capture. And then we're going over into life cycle to see how we can nurture the individual clinician and then hopefully broaden that experience to the larger group.
Amazing. So are there different channels that you're focusing on for each one of those steps? I assume there's almost like LinkedIn is great for establishing authority, and then your CRM is a lot of nurturing. So I'm sure there's a lot of, consistent marketing strategy there, but I'm curious if there's anything different or noteworthy from your guys' perspective.
I would say there is, especially with GEO on the horizon and looking at how we can make our impression exist on this black box of search. My primary search was always within organic channels. And as we've looked to evolve, we want to find where the clinicians are. So where are those forums? Where are those larger publications that we want to exist on? Because that's where they're already at. And then it's looking at how can we build a larger identity for the entity that is our brand existing in the internet ecosystem and make it so that when folks are searching for questions that are tangentially related to us, we pop up as the right solution. So it's looking at broadening from creating SEO on our site, which is always near and dear to my heart. But then also figuring out where those impressions can exist in public forums. LinkedIn is actually not so much one that we prioritize solely because clinicians aren't as active on LinkedIn. Fair. But we do look at other social channels. We have been fostering an organic community actually that was built by clinicians in Facebook. And we sort of just exist in there to provide them with support from us. It's been a matter of finding what makes sense to place ourselves in and then really leaning in to the questions clinicians are asking so we can provide something helpful and useful. And then in terms of that more middle of funnel and in life cycle, it's creating that education through the standard channels, email, building a very robust help center, giving folks the chance to talk to us, which more often than not gives me a lot of content to create already.
I'm sure. How do you identify, what forums or what channels you want to be focusing on? Is it as simple as just going on and conducting a Google search, or, you're talking to people and you just know what publications are popular in healthcare, or is it a little bit more sophisticated than that?
It is unfortunately never as easy as conducting a Google search. So
Yes.
we have had user surveys that's given us a lot of data, but I also had the luckiness to be able to meet with several clinicians. I've met with about 50 in the last year, and I'm sure I'll keep meeting with them. And as I meet them, I'm asking, what publications are you reading? What social channels are you on? So we're able to blend that anecdotal data with the larger survey responses that gives us a pretty solid understanding of where to go.
Got it. Very cool. I'm curious, and I don't want to put you on the spot and make you look bad, but as a marketer, I think there's always a need to kind of justify your efforts and what it is that you're working on. And I think there's so many, whether it's a healthcare professional or like a client of mine at an agency, where they're just like, we're going to test this out for a couple months, and if it doesn't work, we're going to stop. So I'm curious, and obviously that's not the right way to think about it. You get some data, you optimize, you have to keep going. So I'm curious if you have any situations like that where you're having to relay this to somebody who doesn't necessarily get marketing, and how you do that. And additionally, I'm curious if you've just had something that just flat out hasn't worked and kind of what you learned from that.
Oh, I think that's such a good question. I don't know if we've had something that hasn't worked where we've put the kibosh, we're not going to enter that channel. But in terms of providing impact, especially in a Series A startup, I think metrics are your golden goose. What can I make sure is going to prove this tangible value? And how clear can I be from the outset that this is what I expect? So for example, with organic, you're going to be looking at traffic, but really you're looking at how does this support my free trials? And if I can tell a story that showcases which content is directly supporting that, we have a strong layer there. And then if we're able to look at our domain rating increasing and prove that that supports us showing up in these GEO searches, sometimes it's just a matter of having them go and search it themselves and see if we show up. And then saying, these are the efforts that we've made that have contributed to that. I think that helps ease the pain a bit. Sometimes it's going to take long. And the best I can do is give them a very clear expectation for what I expect to happen and when I expect it to happen. Sure. And I have had conversations where I've truly believed in an effort. And I've been asking the team, can we please continue to support this? And then the results will show up in 6 months down the line. And I've been very lucky to have a team that is willing and interested in trying these different efforts to see what's going to support what. And I think that's the beauty of a startup. A lot of folks are throwing things at the wall. And so I think throw it at the wall with an educated guess.
Having that trust and that long-term view, that is music to my ears. Good on you. You must be good at translating that and navigating those conversations. So
I think in many ways I'm just a lucky girl with a great team. But yes, a lot of it is, here's the benefit that we've shown from historically with SEO, for example. But if we've created something that isn't going to directly impact, how can we associate it with the things that will?
Amazing. So you referenced GEO a couple of times there. For anybody who's listening who isn't familiar, that is generative engine optimization, having to do with all of the AI tools that are, the chat GPTs, the AI overviews on Google, all of that kind of stuff. So, you've had a little bit of success. We've talked about this. You're starting to rank on some of those engines. Your domain rank has improved. Curious as to, what has worked for you guys? What is helping you to get some more exposure on those platforms?
Existing beyond our website is the biggest advice I can give, as well as identifying individuals who also have garnered their own topical authority and collaborating with them. So this is the truth. Everything that exists on the internet is an entity. So I myself, Lauren Funaro, am a content marketer. I can publish to my own LinkedIn, I can write guest posts, and I have garnered a level of authority in content marketing. When I'm publishing for a healthcare brand, I want to identify the sites, the individuals, and whatever other forum is related to myself as Freed, an AI medical scribe, AI clinician assistant. So we can exist on them, and then we can have them move onto our site. If I have an author on my site, for example, I work with a brilliant nurse practitioner. Her name is Erica Dorn, and she runs a nurse practitioner charting school. She's already garnered that authority in medical charting. When she publishes to my site, it's a compounding effect of her building that tangential relationship with our name associated with charting and her name associated with charting.
That's very smart. I think that's overlooked by a lot of marketers, and probably not understood, by a lot of people, especially again in the healthcare space. So, is this an active outreach that you're doing? You're identifying these people. You're reaching out to them through email. Is like kind of like a cold kind of campaign, and trying to say like, hey, like let's collaborate, or do you have these kind of existing relationships already built in?
I have the luxury of having excellent users who are actually these clinicians. So Erica Dorn, who I mentioned is a Freed user. And we did have a smaller ambassador program, which we're right now not pursuing. I think it's more so about finding the individuals who can make the greatest impact and building a relationship with them and seeing the longevity of it. So to answer your question, I have not had to do any outbound. I do imagine there is a world where I will as we start to scale.
Well, it's so funny. Every one of these conversations I have, it keeps on reinforcing we are in this digital world, this AI world. People talk about robots and all this kind of stuff. The thing that still matters is that human element, that human interaction. You have this person that is an expert that provides real, the term that people like to use is UGC, or user-generated content, real insights. And it has a large impact for your marketing, for your ranking, and for your business. So yes, it's very cool to see. I'm curious if do you provide guidelines to these people? Okay, I'm sure there's some kind of don't just go off on tangents and say whatever you want. Can you help us with a certain thing?
A lot of what we create is in a partnership with one another. So I do have a pretty robust hub of what makes excellent content to support whatever the end goal is of the content, what terms we might use, what is going to specifically answer the query that we're trying to support. But really, it's a matter of working with that person to then identify what is useful and then figuring out what distribution looks like. When you're not limited to search, you're then able to create content that can be distributed everywhere. And in that world, we're now answering questions that have been directly shared with me from clinicians. So finding the person who best serves to respond to that answer, they usually know more about it than I do or ever will. So how can I give them the platform to leverage that expertise while also speaking to a layman so that they have the opportunity to be as clear and less full of jargon as possible?
That's you're hitting right at home. I was just reading a post about Mark Cuban, how he never uses like acronyms or just like jargony industry terms because it's just like nobody wants to hear that, and it's easier to understand. He obviously can talk to everybody about any acronym or any business term, but he's like, let's keep it simple. Anybody can understand, and that's going to help to increase my reach a little bit more. And people share it. I'm referencing him right now, so it's
exactly. I've already failed because I said GEO, but it's hard as a marketer to get out of the acronyms.
Absolutely. I mean, we're just, one of my questions that I was going to ask you about was Google's EEAT. So, it's
talk about it all day.
Well, let's hear about it. So how do you approach it? What is your strategy? Explain it to the people who don't know what it is. Just curious how Freed approaches that.
So EEAT, my best friend and worst enemy. So we're looking at expertise, we're looking at experience, we're looking at authority, and we're looking at trustworthiness. This is, of course, also supporting a traditional SEO, search engine optimization play, where you're pulling keywords into the content. What it really means, in my understanding of it, is that we want to showcase the expertise of the person creating the content and then compound that with authority within the topic. And that authority can mean links from pages that are helping build the ecosystem within the topic. I'm going to use an example to help illustrate it. So let's say AI scribe is what I want to get authority on. I'm going to build an article that is going to describe what an AI scribe is. I'm going to have someone who has used an AI scribe use I and we statements. Here's how I used it. Can I include screenshots within an actual product that shows I've been within the tool and I'm not just speaking as someone trying to sell a tool? Can I then have that writer be someone like Erica Dorn, who has experience within medical charting? And then can I build other pages linking to this page so that my authority has now been built by the doorways of these links? So I tend to look at individual pages as part of the broader topic using hub and spoke. But when someone asks me, for example, how do you optimize a page? I usually take a step back and say, this one page is part of this larger ecosystem. And that's really how I'm fulfilling EEAT. A lot of the time, I'll get a direct quote from someone who can talk about their unique experience. For example, I created a SOAP Note templates article, and I was able to work with real clinicians to build and showcase their templates. Those are the different ways that we provide that helpful, actually useful content. And then, of course, including those keywords to help Google figure out what the heck you're talking about. And that's worked very well for us.
Amazing. Very cool to hear. I like the hub and spoke kind of model and focus there. It's always good to have different topics, different content buckets. That's always what I like to call it. I don't know, just a fun way, I guess, to say it. What do your buckets look like? I assume there's a product one, there's a, just a general business one, maybe a healthcare kind of update, maybe AI scribe one. I'm curious as to what that looks like for you.
We try to stay as tight and deep as possible. What I've been seeing is that when people publish too outside of their depth, they're actually getting negatively impacted. So right now we have a lot on SOAP notes, medical charting, AI scribe is one, but that actually extends out into scribe. So we have a content lever on medical scribing, what that process looks like, who medical scribes are, and then we extend out further into this ambient listening, ambient technology space. So I try to find the thread between them all and then go as deep as possible, both in the educational content, but then also in the product description. Another much more brilliant than me, SEO futurist, I think her name is Jess Schultz. She talks about how in GEO specifically, they are looking to differentiate you. So if you're talking about, say, a bag, how can you differentiate your bag by saying it has this many zippers, it is this color? And we do the same when we educate folks on Freed. So we've created content about how our AI operates, who specifically we're serving in these specialties. We've dug really deeply into the product itself so that we can tell a story throughout all of these distribution channels beyond SEO and GEO.
Very cool. That's interesting. That's very actionable insights I think people can take. So I want to put a bow on that and just kind of help out other healthcare marketers. I myself, I'm not a content marketer by trade. I was raised in the arms of paid media. I'm an ads guy. So having to switch over to a content strategy for my agency has been awkward, to say the least, and a new challenge. So I'm curious as to what your advice would be for someone who is like, all right, I need to start building my authority and my trustworthiness. But how do I do it without having that imposter syndrome, without feeling awkward in front of a camera? Where do I start when there's a million places and a million things to talk about? What would your advice be for kind of getting off the ground?
For your first steps, I have two pieces of advice. One, I would talk to as many content marketers as you can. I have reached out to so many strangers on LinkedIn, and almost, if not all, have been willing to just sit and have a chat with me because you don't know what you don't know. And content marketing, I've been talking about SEO, but that's just one channel. So that leads me to my second answer, which would be really get to know your audience and learn how they speak, what they're looking at, what they care about, what they don't care about, how they want to read. For example, at Freed, when we're creating especially non-SEO content, we make it a point to make it as concise as possible, 2 to 3 minutes max. We actually call our blog note bloat, which is an inside joke clinicians call 2 full notes note bloat. And that's because we want to give them something quick, quippy, something that can provide them with value immediately, can make them laugh, can dig into something they might be interested in. And we wouldn't have none of that understanding if I didn't speak to several clinicians and get a lot of feedback that said, this doesn't work for me. I'm not interested in this. Sometimes the format needs to be video. Sometimes it needs to live where that clinician is going to find it. And so those I would do before you build anything. Then you would identify those channels. What channel is most relevant and useful and going to get us the most bang for our buck? And then learn as much as you can about that channel. And make mistakes, especially if you have a team that is willing to let you play around and publish. If you don't create something, you have nothing to optimize. I think that the best lesson I could have learned is that when I publish a significant amount, I learn so much by whether or not that converted to trials, by whether or not I was getting the traffic I wanted, by whether or not people were learning and using the product more. So I hope those are helpful.
I support everything that you just said there, especially the part about making mistakes and just go for it. One of my mantras, especially when it comes to content creation, is just progress over perfection, meaning like let's just do it. I could sit here and try to get that perfect image or that perfect headline for the next 30 minutes or an hour, and it still could bomb. So let's just get it out there, let the data dictate, stop sitting here worrying about it. So I wholeheartedly love what you're saying there.
I do too. I love learning something new and tackling a new channel. And it's really a lot of content marketing is trial and error. You don't know the tools. You don't know what you're trying to dig into until you figure it out yourself. So I highly encourage people to just go for it.
Yes, please do. I also want to highlight one additional thing that you said, because I think it is very, very important. It's the conversations that you had with the clinicians. If you any marketers out there that are listening, if you have customers, they should be a huge resource for you for your content. One of my favorite projects I worked on years ago, I think this was in 2015 or something like that, was for a local hospital. We interviewed doctors and patients, created this whole network of content, and we doubled their transplants over in just 1 year. And it's all because we used their exact words and it's such an untapped resource, and you should be milking it for as much as you can. So
you're exactly right. And I started as an SEO, and I think I leaned too heavily on keyword research first. And now it's like I can add it in after I've had the conversations and understand the questions and understand where the real interest lies. And then the keyword research goes on top of that to help identify where the search demand actually is. So I cannot stress enough. I've gotten so many ideas. I met with a clinician in our community randomly because she had a question about our tool. And in digging into it, I was able to create a demo. But then I also was able to inform the product team that this is really confusing. What can we do to refine this? And I think that it directly impacts the way the product is built when everyone on your team has a unique understanding of the user's perspective.
Absolutely. There's always a new idea that can come from it, or even again, just a different word being used sometimes resonates. So
it's so true. Like clinicians have so many different terms that they just use reflexively. I actually have a sheet that I keep populating of what clinician jargon is. Like a golden weekend means you got your Saturday and your Sunday.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
I know.
That's so good. I feel like that's a fun little piece of content for you right there, sharing that. All right. I want to jump into AI a little bit, obviously, a little bit more in terms of how it impacts your content, your creation process, your overall workflow. So do you have AI included in your process, your research, your creation? What does that look like today?
Yes, we do have AI. And I think that people think when you use AI on a marketing team, that means that AI is writing everything, creating everything, and the team is just sitting and twiddling their thumbs. And that is not. Unfortunately, I do have a job to do. But what I think the real play here is figuring out where AI is actually useful and then where it falls flat and it needs that human intervention. I found the most success in using AI for analysis. So for example, if I'm looking at competitors and I'm trying to identify what the gaps are in our content, it's incredibly useful. Or if I'm looking at what is and isn't performing for us, and I want to summarize that in a beautiful chart, that's where AI has been so supportive for me. We have a brilliant teammate. His name is Nate. He's our creative director who created a ChatGPT that's lined up specifically with our marketing goals. So I can just have a conversation with it to pull out that data and analysis. And then, of course, it's great for content repurposing, for helping you scale plans. And that's where I find it works the best. In actual content creation, I think it's an awesome first draft. I would never publish a piece of content written by AI, because what's really successful, and we've seen this with GEO, but we also see it in what resonates, is that specificity. So I need to have a person who knows what they're talking about to layer this content with something that is grounded in actual usefulness. So if it's a specific workflow, if it's an expert insight, if it's a statistic, AI can never pull that in the way that an actual human interaction can. And so if we use that AI to give us the foundation to get us moving more quickly, and then we're able to get the people involved, pull the insights from the experts, layer it with actual workflows, then you get a really excellent piece of content. And it's great at, then I can create now a post on whatever social channel. I can repurpose this from a blog to a one-pager. So that's why I see it as a collaborator. I see it as a partner. And in doing that, I'm able to work much more quickly. But then I also get the value and the part of my job that I love, which is the chance to get creative and to connect with our clinicians by working directly with them and with our brilliant team to layer that content and make it something great.
Human empowerment. Use AI to make you be able to do the fun stuff like you were talking about earlier. That's the goal. Well, so now that Freed has a lot of investment money on the way, do you have an AI tool or anything like that you're hoping to pitch for and integrate into your systems?
Ooh, that is such a great question. I've used some really incredible AI tools. One of the tools I've used was LetterDrop. They've pivoted a bit. Now they're focusing on more LinkedIn, which I totally get. But what they used from SEO optimization has been absolutely brilliant, and I've loved it. Then, of course, I'm using Ahrefs and SEMrush. I've been tag teaming both from a search perspective. If I were to figure out which of those is going to support me best, I think that I'm going to be an Ahrefs girl. I'm going to see if I can lean in for the more expensive play and get ChatGPT insights. But next, we actually had a hackathon last week with our team. We had a company offsite, and our AI team was able to build this brilliant tool that's helping me monitor trends and use those trends to create those first drafts so that my team and I can then start building excellent content for and beyond SEO and GEO. And so I might not have to buy any more. I might be able to use what our awesome team has made.
Best case scenario right there.
I feel very lucky.
When you say identify trends, is this increased search volume? Is this engagement and shareables on social media? Is it a bunch of different things? I'm curious what that looks like.
This is actually beyond search volume. The limit that I think we have with search and even with social, actually, no, I'll start with search, is that in order for it to garner volume, it has to be popular for a certain period of time. You are limited to what has already created a level of surface for itself. Mm-hmm. And with social, you have virality, but the moment you catch on to it, you're already a little late. And if it's just a moment of virality, it's not necessarily something sustainable. What I'm looking for in trends are, what are healthcare clinicians dealing with in their documentation? What are we seeing in all of the forums that exist on the internet? And is that building a theme that I can start publishing content on? Another one would be the term ambient listening. That started to increase in popularity. If I just look at Ahrefs, I'm going to see low volume. But now that I'm monitoring news cycles and these different platforms, I'm able to see that it is increasing in interest. And then I'm able to connect with these emerging trends before I'm reliant on the tools that would just tell me volume. So that was an incredible unlock for me. I was told by a much smarter person than myself that it's 100 AI agents that are looking at all of these different trends, and we're able to identify the topics based on the questions that we know we want to ask. So I just started using it. The hackathon was last week, but I feel like I'm so excited to dig in and see what it'll tell me about the larger landscape.
That is so cool. I might be bugging you afterwards just to give me like a 5 minute view under the hood. Like I want to see what's going on here.
I know. I'm not that I'm trying to sell my own tool. I love healthcare, but I did think it was like really awesome.
That is very, very cool. Is there a way to, whether it be with that tool or through some other kind of systems that you measure, specifics in terms of videos? There could be a 10-minute long video, but maybe there's 1 minute of it that really stands out, or maybe it's the whole thing. I don't know. I'm curious where video stands into the whole thing. And I told you she'd come say hi. Here you go.
Hello! Remind me of her name.
Her name is Shade.
Hi, Shade. I love you. Oh, she's so sweet. I love that you asked about video. I'm actually doing my first foray into video, starting with case studies and testimonials. So we're using Riverside to record those videos. But really, this is a good question for my creative director. He's the brilliant video behind the scenes. But we're realizing video more often than not should be where we start. So if we can create the preliminary piece of content through video and then escalate it to these different types, these different formats, that I think is the direction we're heading in, especially with you to think about product education. We use Webflow, and Webflow itself has really incredible videos that they use to walk through their product. And I see that being what we do. One, how can we put these specialists and brilliant clinicians at the forefront through video? Two, how can we walk through the product in a way that makes it consumable and makes it as simple as possible, solving for that need, making sure we're meeting the clinicians where they are.
To your point about the note bloat, do you think that clinicians would be more inclined to listen to something or watch something as opposed to have to, read and write, if they're trying to educate themselves or learn something new?
I think it depends on the content you're creating for,
Sure.
But I absolutely do think there is a time when they would rather listen to something. And I want to be able to capture that content format based on whatever that need and interest is. So that's something we're playing around with right now. We've created a lot of video demos in our help center, and we hypothesize that that's going to be more useful than an article walkthrough. But sometimes folks are interested in sort of a deeper dive. And in that world, having that foundational documentation adjacent with the video gives them whatever they're looking for, regardless of format. So that's also helpful. I do think, though, a clinician doesn't have much time, and if they can just listen to something and get it quick, that tends to be useful. Many of the clinicians I've met with are, FaceTiming me from one meeting to going home or having an appointment. And so if I've seen that in just meeting with them, I imagine their days are filled with very little time to engage with a larger piece of content.
Throw it on that 1.5 speed and go for your walk or whatever it is, and take in that content. That's perfect.
I do think that that's the play. I think that if we can give it to them however they want it, I'm here to support that.
Amazing. So I'm curious what the future of content from your perspective kind of looks like with all these AI tools. There's a million pieces of content coming out all the time. Some are obviously fake. Some are obviously authentic. I'm curious as to what you think is going to be happening in the next year to 5 years as more and more tools become available.
I think that's an excellent question. Well, we've already seen in the SEO and GEO lens that if you just use AI, it's not going to perform well. I think it was HubSpot that lost a significant number of their traffic because they were likely publishing too many articles that did not have enough depth. So when we talked about the EEAT standards and how GEO works earlier, they're not going to pull what's already recycled. You need something new. And so that behooves us to build content that includes that extra level. So I think that we will see more partnerships with AI, with specialist intervention, with unique POV, with product information that includes actual walkthroughs of the product. I also think that it means content is going to be moving up the line in the value chain. So it's not just what the tool does, but what is the workflow? How is it going to reshape the practice, the larger experience for them? How can we engage in these real value adds in what we build? So that's what I see, the shift in what I've been creating historically to what we're creating now, garnering authority that's very deep, that is very strong in a niche use case, and then showing how these things function and then their larger impact for whoever the user might be.
Got it. Yeah. I mean, that makes perfect sense. Let's get that deep, useful impact, so that people can actually get some value out of it. That's, I think, the good side of AI and helping you to understand, really where to put your time and how to make it useful. I think one of the recent trends that we've seen just in marketing in general from AI, but especially with healthcare, is personalization in content. I'm sure whether you guys are doing it already, you're experimenting with, especially from the CRM perspective, right? And your follow-ups and different touch points. So I'm curious if you can paint a picture as to what Freed's personalization tactics look like today, and how you navigate that from a HIPAA perspective, because there's always that extra level of a watchdog you have to be thinking about. So
I'm going to answer the HIPAA question first, and then
Sure.
if I get to answer the other one, remind me, please.
Okay.
So to HIPAA, I think you're absolutely right. Security is fundamental. I cannot do anything if I am not thinking about the safety and security of the user and their patient, which is kind of nice because what it requires is that we build this layer of trust from the get-go. I can't just take a screenshot of a chart and call it a day. I have to be able to meet with these clinicians and discuss their experience and really understand what they are comfortable showing, which requires a call. It requires 30 minutes walking through their workflow to get the small snippet that they're interested and open into sharing. So it enables us to have this back and forth with users that we already have, which has become prolific. I think it's because of that, actually, that I've developed that really strong connection to several users in our 20,000 plus user base, right? And with that in mind, you have to think about specificity in terms of what is going to benefit the actual clinician. An AI scribe can write a note, but each clinician in each specialty needs a different type of note. They have a template in their EHR, electronic health system, that might be for their practice. It might be for the type of patient that they're seeing. It can go on and on and on to where you have templatization across an entire 3-person team using Freed. And if I'm going to introduce them into the benefit of Freed, it's my responsibility to understand the different ways they might use it. So getting to build those case studies where I walk through the actual workflow, where I'm able to look at these templates that are really important, where I understand the electronic health record that these types of users are likely to use, and then building content for that. So we're actually in the process of building out these very strong, in my opinion, specialty specific hubs that will host case studies, of course, but then also that workflow specific content. So here are the templates that are useful for your team. Here is a typical workflow for a rural healthcare practice versus a workflow for a solopreneur. So creating that and having it housed in this larger hub has been something I'm really excited to embark on. And in terms of distribution for that, we're not really looking at SEO optimization here. We're looking at finding where the clinicians are to provide that value. So maybe that's an outbound, maybe that exists on social media. Maybe we can work with our fellow clinicians to create that connection. And then when someone is going to search, they have this very strong hub that they can run into the second they hit our site. So specificity, I would say, is absolutely the name of the game. It does not benefit my users or myself at all to create a generic page and say, this is an AI scribe and it's going to solve all your problems.
Yeah, all of your problems gone, one fell swoop.
Yeah, we did
it. I think you touched on it a little bit, but I want to dive in a little bit. So there's, so where my head is at when I think of, let's say, like Tesla. That was an early on electric vehicle company, and it's obviously an automotive company, but it's really a data company, right? It was just accumulating a lot of data points about how cars are used and about roads and things like that. I'm curious if future iterations of Freed could almost be that way. You're getting iterations of how doctors are using it, but also just notes about patients and things. And I know that can get a little bit hairy with understanding like healthcare, again, violating HIPAA. I'm wondering if there is an opportunity to take some of that and use that in your strategies and your content, improve the product, anything like that. I know that could be a little bit of a weird situation, but I'm curious. That's where my head went.
Yeah, I want to make sure I'm answering the question correctly. So we're thinking using the data that we garner from our user base to maybe improve the product, maybe evolve it.
Yes.
Definitely, I think that we will use user interaction to improve the product. So this isn't about necessarily the HBI. This isn't about the patient data. In fact, that gets deleted.
Okay, so that's kind of what I was thinking. Like, you're not going to use the patient data, but
not at all.
Yeah.
So I want to be very clear, because
that's
the question people ask is, this information is deleted, and the notes when you have an account only exist for the person who has the account. So even if you have a larger group, that individual clinician is accessing that information. And that is not what we're interested in. Really, what we're looking at is what the clinician is using within the product, what tools they're using outside of the product. Can it be brought into Freed? Is that something we need to integrate with? So that's where the user data comes in. And a lot of that is funneling into how we're expanding the product. So I mentioned earlier how we're looking at that pre-charting before they meet the patient. So we've been looking into insights onto what that might look like and where the stops and starts are. And then post, are they sending patient instructions, with which we help them do? We're looking at how we work with these different EHRs to strengthen that relationship so they don't have to go back and forth. That's the data that's going to impact the product. The patient data, we're not building doctors. We're working with doctors. How can we create a stronger administrative use case so that you don't have to do it yourself?
Great answer to my wildly roundabout question. It took me a while to get there. You handled it. Well done. Well done.
I'm glad that I answered the question you asked.
Yeah, amazing. Amazing. Well, great. This has been awesome. I have a handful of rapid fire questions that I want to fire at you here while we get to the end. So I ask everybody, you can snap your fingers. You have a fully automated process or AI solution in place. What is that solution for you?
Oh my gosh, I might already have it with the hackathon.
Right?
I wanted something that would help predict for me. I wanted something that's going to tell me what's coming. And I have something that might help that. Tell me what I'm missing. So that would be my solution.
Done. Amazing. All right. What is harder, getting the perfect headline or the perfect visual asset?
Oh, that's a great question. I'd say the headline. I'm biased because I'm in content. Headlines can take forever, because how do you distill this into something that's going to catch your attention? It's see tough. The headline first.
That's right. That's right. Got to get that click-through rate. All right. Paint me a picture. It's crunch time for Lauren, late night before a big deadline. You still have a bunch to do. What's it look like behind the scenes for you?
I have a cup of coffee and I'm crying. I'm just kidding. If I have a big deadline, let's say it's a larger content campaign, I am probably working with one of my teammates and we are refining the copy to match whatever we want to have it do. And we are sending it to my brilliant CMO, Val, and hoping she's awake, even though she's in EST and I'm in PST.
Oh, boy. The big deadline. She better be up.
Come on, Val. I know it's 3 a.m.
What is your current random obsession that is coming up on your social media timeline today?
Oh my gosh. I have to change what it is, because I am a terrible avid TikTok user. And one of the ones I've been obsessed with has been the musical Death Becomes Her. It's popped up on my feed and I think I've watched the entire thing. Not useful at all to my actual marketing brain, but it's been very fun.
Everybody's got the random things that come and go. So last question, Beyonce or Taylor Swift?
Beyonce, hands down.
All right. Amazing. So I wanted to go open forum real quick. Is there anything that you wanted to share that maybe we didn't discuss that you're passionate about or you're excited for people to know?
Oh, I love that. Yes. I want to talk a bit about Freed and what it's been doing in general. I think that our unique relationship with clinicians has enabled us to really save time, and that's in a tangible way. And using that in marketing, getting those aggravated stats is a big part of how we've been able to tell that story while being mindful of HIPAA and the data that we're collecting. So I wanted to make that point. But then I wanted to expand on what the clinician assistant is. So right now, Freed is an AI scribe. It is solving for that problem. But when we think about an assistant, we're thinking about creating that right-hand man and really looking at the administrative process from beginning to end. So having identified that documentation is a really large part of it, that's where we've doubled down on. But I imagine a world where this assistant can evolve even beyond that. And I'm so excited for what is coming in the next 6 months, but I imagine in the next few years, we might have a completely different tool than we've had before. And the number one goal of that would be to be for clinicians. Our CEO was actually married, his wife was in residency, and she was charting every night. And that's why he built this tool. It was so he could spend more time with his wife. And that heart of us putting the clinician first is something you very rarely see in SaaS. And it's been an absolute pleasure to work for something that is dedicated to making clinicians' lives better beyond our own success. I think that we really put our money where our mouth is when, if we can make clinicians' lives better, we will always make that choice beyond what might give us a small win for the company.
That's some beautiful background. I think that story alone is great content for you guys as well. I'm sure you lean into that in some capacity to say like, hey, it was built specifically for this reason and it works. So you might as well highlight that.
Definitely. We actually have an article we're putting out about how we prioritize clinicians and weaving it into the narrative. Like our whole value system is based on, is this going to benefit a clinician? And the question we're told to ask ourselves before we make a choice is this going to benefit a clinician? So it's great for content, but it's also great for my own decision making, especially when I'm up at 1 p.m. trying to get a deadline.
Very, very cool. Well, expect me to be bothering you in the next 6 months to kind of hear what the updates are. Maybe we'll have a round 2 going so you can share some of the cool stuff you guys are working on.
I would love to. I could talk about this all day, and it's been so nice getting to know you, Kyle.
Amazing. Well, Lauren, I really appreciate you joining. People can find you on LinkedIn. Do you have any other accounts or websites you want to plug or anything like that?
Well, definitely check out Freed at getfreed.ai. Yes. I would love for you just to learn about us and see what we've been building. And on LinkedIn, yes, I'm Lauren Funaro, and I'm more than happy to just chat with other content marketers, folks interested in entering the industry. I've learned from so many prolific, brilliant marketers, and I would love to share anything I know with someone who wants to chat.
Very cool. Yes. Lauren, content marketing manager at Freed. Check them out, getfreed.ai. Thank you so much for joining. This was a great conversation. I love marketing. I like to nerd out on this kind of stuff. So I appreciate all of your insights and for joining the Brainiac Blueprint. Lauren, if you wouldn't mind, do me a favor, look into the camera and say, stay brilliant, Brainiacs.
Stay brilliant, Brainiacs.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kyle.
Cheers.
Bye.